Breaking tonight, Nancy Pelosi says she is, quote, worth the trouble in the face of lost elections and some fierce opposition in the ranks as the president revels in a win and a road trip. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha MacCallum, and here is the story for tonight. So the secret health care plan is now out in the open, and it's being hotly debated, in fact. And the president says with regard to the White House tapes, he doesn't have any. But last night, the president was back in his element, doing what he does best, playing to the crowd out in Iowa. Watch this.
Everyone gathered in this arena is bound together by common values. You love our country. You obey our laws. All you want is a government that shows you the same respect and loyalty in return. We are making such incredible progress. We are making progress like nobody can believe. These people are being driven crazy. Crazy. I mean, they have phony witch hunts going against me. They have everything going. And you know what? All we do is win, win, win.
Iowa, health care, Nancy Pelosi, and the tale of the tapes. Let's bring in our panel tonight. Mark Thiessen is a scholar at the American Enterprise Institute. Marie Harf is a former Obama State Department spokesperson. Both are Fox News contributors. And Ben Lanza is the former communications director for the Trump transition team and managing director at Mercury LLC. All right, first, so is the White House putting together a practically Russia-free week? And what did you think of the president's message? Let's start with you, Mark.
Well, except for that one mention of a witch hunt. This was the first speech or public utterances that Donald Trump has made that made no mention of Russia whatsoever. He was talking about his agenda. He was talking about health care, taxes, infrastructure, jobs, the things people elected him to do. And the way you he's not still, to this day, he's not under investigation for collusion with Russia. He believes that there's no collusion. If that is true, then the way you succeed is by flooding the zone with policy wins, by focusing on your agenda, by going out to the places like Iowa, rallying the country around his agenda, the things that the forgotten Americans sent him to Washington to do. They didn't send him to Washington to fight with the fake news media or have a big fight with Congress over Russia. They sent him to do these things, to get them to get jobs, to help them with opioid crisis, help them with all these problems. And as long as he focuses on that, he's going to succeed.
You know, it's so interesting to watch, and you were on the communications team,
yes,
Brian, and we all remember during the campaign, you know, there were times when things would go wildly off track, as I know you well remember, and then he would try to get back to the stuff, back to, I remember you guys saying, we're going to do policy speeches this week, we're going to do this policy speech and that policy speech, and, you know, it helped. It helped to turn him sort of back on focus. Can he do that? And also, is he as upset about all of this as people argue? Because he didn't look that upset last night.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me here. Listen, the president has a unique ability to focus when the time comes to it. I think when you look at the policies that he was elected on and you look at the people he's looking to represent in D.C. and drain the swamp, that's always been his focus. What you have is sort of a left-wing media agenda of trying to bring a distraction there with this Russia investigation. What we know now is that this investigation started nearly a year ago from testimony that they started monitoring Carter Page. So in a year's time, we have not one shred of evidence of any collusion.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. We played the David Brooks soundbite last night, but when David Brooks, who really has nothing nice to say about the president, starts going, I'm a little thinking there's nothing there, maybe.
The issue's dead.
Has Democrats gone too far out on a limb counting on this story and wanting it to bring the presidency down?
Well, Donald Trump was clearly in his element last night, and I think for all of us, we saw that. But campaigning is not governing. And if health care doesn't pass the Senate, it's not going to be because of Democrats. It's going to be because the Republican caucus cannot get its act together. So Donald Trump clearly was in a place last night that he's comfortable with. He was talking to voters he's comfortable with. But it still remains to be seen whether his agenda will get passed forward. And he has his base. That is clear. That's not enough to hold the House in 2018, I don't think.
There was one issue that did, dance around the Russia story, and it had to do with whether or not there were tapes from the White House. And we all remember sort of the back and forth from the president. Maybe there are tapes. Maybe there aren't tapes. So here's what he said about this today. Let's put it up. With all of the recently reported electronic surveillance, intercepts, unmasking, and illegal leaking of information, I have no idea, whether there are tapes or recordings of my conversations with James Comey, but I did not make and do not have any such recordings. Why? Brian, why does he do this? I mean, that just opened up a huge can of worms. You've got, Adam Schiffer, we're going to talk to in a little while, saying, What does he mean by that? Are there or are there not tapes?
Here's what we know is that him saying that the potential of tapes exist has actually kept Director Comey honest during the testimony. He was able to say, hey, you know what, in fact, the president says that he was told 3 times that he wasn't under any type of investigation. By the very fact that he said he potentially had those tapes, it sort of forced Comey to confirm that he wasn't under any type of federal investigation. It also forced Comey to come back and sort of correct a New York Times story that leaks from the investigation said that there were direct ties between Russia and the administration, and the threat of potential tapes forced Comey to testify that didn't exist.
Would it surprise you if this White House records things when people come in to talk?
Yeah, I'm not surprised if government records everything. I think the modern times sort of said that everything's being watched nowadays. I mean, we know that, like I said, we know that July of 2016 that the FBI started paying attention to Carter Page. So we have been under surveillance for nearly a year. So that exists. Now, does the White House have tapes? I've been to the White House many times. I haven't seen any of those things. I don't operate under the assumption that those exist. But we do know that the tactic that the president said that he may have tapes forced Comey's hand to say publicly 3 times during testimony that there was no evidence of collusion. It also forced him to correct a story that was out there that saying evidence existed in the New York Times and a competitor
So you're saying
network.
if he's bluffing, it worked?
But it also kept the story in the news.
Exactly. Kept the story in the news.
Exactly.
Exactly.
In the news, and that's not the story the Trump administration wants out there right now.
All right. So as the White House may be finding a bit of new footing, and they're definitely trying to do that this week, Democrat leader Nancy Pelosi is very much on the defensive, growing calls from within her own party for her to hang it up after a bad run of Democrat losses in congressional elections. She, however, remains defiant. Watch.
Why should you keep your job? So you want me to sing my praises? Is that what you're saying? Why should I? I'm a master legislator. I am a strategic, politically astute leader. When it comes to personal ambition, having fun on TV, have your fun. I love the arena. I thrive on competition. My decision about how long I stay is not up to them.
Woof. She's not happy. And as we just put on the lower third here, if this is according to our Capitol Hill producer, he says that there is a, quote, insurrection among current factions against Pelosi. Marie.
6 months ago, when she ran for leader again, people were scared to come out against her and vote for Tim Ryan. And in the last 24 hours, the number of Democrats who have come out and said her time has passed has grown. I've actually been surprised by it. And I do think it's time for new leadership. I think people like Joe Crowley from Queens right down the road, people like Seth Moulton, a veteran who served in Iraq, understands national security. These are the people that need to step up. I was pretty shocked at how the Democratic caucus has responded. Pleasantly surprised, actually.
Mark,
Getting rid of Nancy Pelosi is like treating cancer with a Band-Aid. Okay, she is a symptom of the problem, but she is not the problem. The problem the Democrats have is they are in worse shape than Donald Trump. Washington Post AC News poll a few weeks ago, just 28% of Americans say the Democratic Party is in touch with the concerns of ordinary Americans, 10 points below Donald Trump. So the Democratic Party has a deep, deep problem, which is that they have lost contact and a connection with the center of the country. There was a Priorities USA, liberal super PAC, put out a study the other day that they lost, that there are between 7 and 9 million Americans who voted for Barack Obama who switched their vote to Donald Trump in the last election. They are not going to solve the problem until they figure out a way to reconnect with those voters. And what they're doing is the opposite. They're pushing them away every single day. They are treating Donald Trump with contempt. And when they treat Donald Trump with contempt, those people feel that they are being treated with contempt, and they will never recover until they stop.
Here's what Donald Trump tweeted about this, because we talk about these kinds of things, tweets all the time. He said, "I certainly hope the Democrats do not force Nancy P. out. That would be very bad for the Republican Party. And please let Crying Chuck stay." Ryan?
Stand with Nancy. I mean, that's all I have to say.
You want Nancy to stick around.
Listen, I mean, she is the leader of the party. She's the fundraiser. She is the voice and the face of the Democratic Party. They voted for her. They're going to keep her, and let's have an election. Let's have an election of ideas and of priorities. I'm almost certain that as the voters start to analyze the priorities, they're more aligned with Republican priorities than with liberal San Francisco priorities.
So you don't want them to figure this problem out and bring in a Tim
I think
Ryan
Nancy's a great leader for the Democratic Party.
Which is why she may not be there in a few months.
Stand with Nancy.
Thank you very much. Great to see you
Thanks,
all.
Martha.
Good to have you here tonight.
Thanks.
So tonight, President Trump and First Lady Melania are hosting a picnic at the White House for Congress, members of Congress. Look at that. Looks like a nice night for a picnic, right? We may hear from the president. We'll take you there live if that gets underway, and we'll keep an eye on it. And they're going to need a little unity, like the barbecue unity that's happening there right now, if they want to get this health care bill through and on the president's desk. Dr. and Senator Bill Cassidy wasn't so sure whether he's going to be on board here, so we're going to ask him. And the president says that the Senate version is, quote, very special, and that Obamacare is, quote, very dead. Next up, Obamacare architect Jonathan Gruber and Lisa Booth respond.
I've made very clear, I want to get to yes, and the way to get to yes is fix the underlying problems, lower premiums, and I will happily be part of it.
Tonight, at long last, 7 weeks to be exact, we are getting our first look at the so-called secret Senate health care bill. Here's some of the reaction from a pretty busy day on the Hill on this. Watch.
The president has said that the Senate bill needed heart. The way this bill cuts health care is heartless.
The speech you just heard was about a bill that he hasn't seen.
The most important thing is that we stop the harmful bill without a heart, Republican legislation.
We want the bill to look more like a repeal. It actually looks like a reiteration or a keeping of Obamacare.
The question for us is, are we going to deliver or not? So time will tell.
They have worked really, really hard to put lipstick on this pig.
We can get this done. We can get to yes.
So one of the senators that you saw there, Rand Paul, was one of 4 GOP members who said that as it stands right now, they cannot support this bill in its current form. For more on the fight and the legislative path forward, we go to Mike Emanuel with the latest from Capitol Hill. Hi, Mike.
Well, hi, Martha. Yeah, it sounds like there will be some negotiation to see if they can get to 50 votes. Let's take a look at some of the key components of the Senate health care bill that was unveiled today, which supporters say would stabilize the health insurance markets. It would not require people to buy insurance. It would improve affordability of health insurance, preserve access to care for pre-existing conditions, and strengthen Medicaid by giving states more flexibility. 4 conservatives, Ted Cruz, Ron Johnson, Mike Lee, and Rand Paul, all came out this afternoon and said they would not support the bill in its current form. They say they want more done to repeal Obamacare and actions taken that they say will lower costs. A member of the GOP leadership defended the bill.
We eliminate all of the mandates, the individual mandates, the employer mandates, the things that people have hated about Obamacare, and we eliminate all the taxes that President Obama and the Democrats put on the American people to pay for a system which, let's face it, after 7 years has completely failed.
So far, Democrats have not shown an interest in these talks, but a moderate Democrat says they understand there are aspects of health care that must be fixed.
If this doesn't, which I hope it doesn't, pass, and they're willing to sit down, and we'll get 6 or 8 or 10 Democrats, a minimum, maybe many more, and truly work part by part. The private sector, we know, needs to be fixed. We've known that from day one.
Some keys to winning over those conservatives would be getting rid of more of those Obamacare regulations and perhaps reducing some of the money that would be used to stabilize those insurance markets. GOP leaders are still hoping to have a vote before the 4th of July holiday. Martha?
Joining me now with his take, medical doctor and Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy. Senator, good evening. Good to have you with us tonight. I know you said that you really couldn't say anything about it until you sort of dug into it. How much have you dug into, and what do you think so far?
I'm about 30 pages and 147. There's actually, most of what I know is that from briefings. There's actually some good stuff. It would lower premiums right off the bat.
How so? How does it do that?
Yeah, so right now the uncertainty in the individual market is driving up premiums tremendously. It would immediately establish certainty for the insurance companies, allowing them to lower those premiums. Going forward, relative to the House bill, it greatly increases the amount somebody who's lower income would receive in order to buy his or her insurance. That's another good thing. It also creates a stabilization fund that insurance companies could use to create a so-called invisible high-risk pool or reinsurance pool that, again, has been estimated to have decreased Maine's premiums by 20%.
Well, let me ask you this, because there's 4 senators, including Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and Senator Johnson, who say that they don't like this bill. And they basically don't like it for all of the reasons that you just stated that you like it. You're saying that it has enough heart for you. I saw that, you wanted it to pass the Jimmy Kimmel test, which we all remember well. They're saying it still keeps the government way too deep into the healthcare business and costs Americans too much money.
There is a transition period. We cannot change the insurance industry today for this coming plan year. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
And people who are paying $20,000, $30,000, and $40,000 a year in premiums, and some are paying that much, would next year, like next month, be given a quote 40% higher than that. Now, I would love it if we could change things today, but that's what Democrats do. Conservatives say we have to evolve, not have a revolution, and I think what we need to do is evolve into something which lowers those premiums, providing credible coverage.
All right, knowing your colleagues as you do you think that you can put together something that's going to pass, and what do you think the time frame is?
Well, leadership wants to get it done next week. I think that seems like a tight time frame to me. I'm not in leadership. I would stretch it out more for more consideration personally. Whether or not the leadership can reach out to those folks, it's probably up to those folks.
Senator Bill Cassidy, thank you very much. It's a big day. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Martha.
So joining me now with more on this, Jonathan Gruber is the architect of Obamacare and an MIT professor. Lisa Booth is a Fox News contributor and Republican strategist. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you here today. Let's put up on the screen, President Obama weighed in on this on Facebook today. And he was, sort of sounding like most Democrats have sounded on this so far. Here's what he said. He said, the Senate bill is not a health care bill. It's a massive transfer of wealth from middle class and poor families to the richest people in America. Lisa?
Well, look, first things first, I take issue with the Democratic Party calling this a secretive process when you have one of the leaders saying that we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it, or one of the architects, with all due respect to Jonathan, saying that it was a lack of transparency and American stupidity that allowed the bill to pass. But, also in regard to President Obama's statement, look, Obamacare is failing. You have multiple big insurers pulling out of the marketplace because it's not working, because the premise that somehow healthy individuals are going to be able to support, the higher risk, unhealthy individuals simply hasn't happened. So what Republicans are trying to do, as Senator Bill Cassidy said, trying to stabilize a marketplace that is not stabilized at this current juncture, and also to help Americans with premiums.
All right. It's interesting, Jonathan, because you've said that this really, the Senate bill, as you read it, it doesn't get rid of Obamacare, and you thought that was pretty good. So why would the president be unhappy with it, the former president?
Well, I mean, basically because it doesn't do any good. It just takes what is Obamacare and just makes it worse. So essentially, it doesn't get rid of the structure of Obamacare. In some sense, that's good. I agree. But in some sense, it says, look, take someone who's 175% of poverty. Instead of paying $1,000 a year for their insurance, they'll pay $10,000 a year for their insurance. So that's why it's mad, is basically it's not, there's no point to this. It doesn't do anything. Bill Cassidy listed some positive aspects. That's great. We could do everything Bill Cassidy listed without massively cutting one of the largest social safety nets in our country. And look, you guys always bring up the quote of what I said in the past, and I'm sorry about that, but it's commentators like your last one who are treating your viewers like they don't have intelligence when they don't highlight the fact that during the Affordable Care Act—
Didn't you say that before?
there was 25 days straight of Senate floor debate, the second longest Senate floor debate in our nation's history, and they want to rush this through with 3 days after the CBO
You know what
score.
I think what the American people want is a better health care plan. I think they were told that they could keep their doctor. They were told that they could keep their plan. That was judged as the lie of the year because everybody up and down the food chain who gets medical care found out that that actually wasn't the case. And, one of the things that's very interesting in this is that it does sort of try to go after things like means testing, age-adjusted tax credits, ways of looking at where there's waste. And I remember when President Obama said, one of the ways he was going to pay for Obamacare was to go after waste and fraud and abuse. That never happened, Jonathan.
That's absolutely not true. We've done more to reduce fraud. This is, once again, I trust your viewers will respect the facts. The single fact is Obamacare did more to reduce fraud in the U.S. healthcare system than any piece of legislation before. You can look it up. And look, I want your viewers to simply ask themselves, will they be better off? Your viewers who are rich, they'll be better off. I'm leaving them out of it. Your viewers who earn below $250,000 a year, I know my political views don't agree with theirs, but I'm going to simply sit down and ask themselves, are they going to be better off under a law which makes lower and middle income people pay much, much more for their health insurance.
Well, let me
That's
ask you
a simple
this.
fact.
First of all, fraud in 2014, toward the end of those years, was $125 billion. And in fact, there was a program under Obamacare that was supposed to find fraud in hospitals. And under the Obama administration, it was cut back because the hospitals didn't like it, because the program gave them a little bit of pad that they actually liked. So there's plenty of places.
That's just not true. If you look at fraud collections by Medicare, they peaked under the actions taken by the Affordable Care Act. We've actually done more to reduce fraud under this law. First of all, fraud is a trivial part of health care. Let's be honest, $125 billion is a tiny, tiny fraction of our health care spend. But second, the actions taken, Medicare fraud collections peaked under the Affordable Care Act.
You know, what I'm trying to get at, and maybe Lisa can weigh on this before I run out of time, because I'm going to, unfortunately, you know, in terms of looking at the system and how it works and getting doctors and patients back into the same sphere where they're actually dealing with each other instead of these faraway entities. Do you think this will bring down costs and help them do that, Lisa? Quickly, I need an answer. Sorry.
I do think it's going to head in that. Look, this bill is not perfect. They have to use the reconciliation process. There are so many limitations in what you can do within those parameters. But I think there are real mechanisms that they're trying to do. And just look at even just giving states more flexibility with the 1332 waiver that basically Obamacare and Democrats tried to make impossible for states to access, allowing states to be able to be more innovative. And you look at something like Medicaid, which is unsustainable at the rate that it's currently expanding. But look, the way that Obamacare is... Okay.
I'm sorry, Lisa. You know, I hope you guys will come back, because I would love for you to come back, and we're going to be talking about this for a while, and I'd love to hear more from Jonathan Gruber. Thank you for being here, and Lisa Booth, thank you very much, you guys. We'll continue. So still ahead, Democrats waking up to the realization that President Trump is in prime position to reshape our nation's courts. So why might this be the Democrats' fault? We'll explain. Plus, some off-the-cuff remarks from the president last night, dominating the morning's media coverage. What the president said about who he wants running the economy in his administration that has folks very upset about his reference to poor people. What did he mean? Charles Hurt and Juan Williams coming up next on that.
I love all people, rich or poor, but in those particular positions, I just don't want a poor person. Does that make sense?
President Trump is about to address the congressional picnic on the South Lawn at the White House. There's Vice President Mike Pence and his wife, Karen Pence, introducing him now. So while we're waiting for that, I'm joined by Charlie Hurt, columnist at the Washington Times and Fox News contributor, and Juan Williams, a co-host of The Five and a Fox News political analyst. So you guys weren't invited to the picnic, I guess.
Guess not. Thank goodness. Never get invited to the picnic.
You know, you look at what the White House has been doing over the past couple of days. There seems to be a concerted effort to sort of move beyond some of the issues that have been dogging them. Now Mike Pence, the vice president, is introducing the president. So let's just watch this for a moment.
States of America, President Donald Trump.
This is so beautiful. Wow. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you, Karen. You've been such a tremendous help to me, both of you, and we very much appreciate it. And Melania and myself, we've become great friends, and great job. Really great job. Thank you. This has truly become, as you know, a wonderful tradition. It's the very first congressional picnic that Melania and I have the pleasure of hosting, so I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. We've gotten to know many of you over the last weeks and months and developed many friendships with politicians. Can you believe it? And some really great people, I have to say. Mostly. A couple of bad ones, but that's okay. But we're honored to host you at the White House and privileged to count you as our very close friends, so many. Tonight, our thoughts and prayers remain with one friend who is not here, a man that we have all come to know and respect and to love, Congressman Steve Scalise. The outpouring of support for Steve and his family has been truly inspiring. We are so touched that joining us here this evening are Steve and Jennifer's children, Harrison and Madison. Beautiful children. In fact, we just gave them a tour of the White House. Just gave them a beautiful tour of the White House. They got the A tour. You know, sometimes we give the B, the C, the D, and the F tour is just like, here it is, let's get out of here. We gave them the A tour. And I want them to know that the whole country is praying for their courageous dad. And all of us are praying for them. It's been amazing. The recovery is going now well. For 2 days I was saying it's really tough. But today I can report things are looking very, very good. So we're very happy about that. I also want to give a very special thanks to Special Agents Greiner and Bailey of the Capitol Police. Lucky they were there for their life-saving actions, and all of the members of Congress, a lot of brave people in Congress who acted in those moments of danger and protected each other. They cared for the wounded. They shielded the vulnerable. And they really did put their own safety aside. So I want to thank some of those people were really very, very brave. We would have never maybe found out about them, except we got to see them in action. So now we know for sure. But we want to thank them. There was a great deal of bravery on behalf of everybody. And you know, Agents Greiner and Ellie, they came rushing in from the outfield, somebody with a rifle, and they had handguns. And that's not a good deal. But one of those bullets struck at the right place, and that was really incredible, or that would have been a far worse morning, believe me. So we want to thank them. America is also filled with pride over the display of character and sportsmanship at the congressional baseball game. I heard it was very special. I wanted to go there, but our folks from Secret Service says maybe we better take a pass. I wanted to be there so badly you have no idea. But I spent a little time at the hospital instead with Steve. It's our hope that this unity that was displayed that evening can maybe continue to grow and thrive between Republicans and Democrats. And I think, honestly, I think we'd all be doing a lot better. And I know the country would be doing a lot better. The American people have entrusted us with great responsibility, and I know that we will prove worthy of the trust they have placed in each of us. I'm hopeful that the spirit of cooperation that we've seen in recent days will deepen as we move forward. I really believe it's something that can happen. Maybe it's too early. Maybe the wounds are too deep in terms of the relationship, because it's been bad for a long time. Long time. Not just when we got there. I mean, this has gone on for many years. And hopefully those wounds can heal, and heal quickly, because we owe it to the American people. Tonight, let us enjoy the company of friends and the comfort of our loved ones. And tomorrow, let us continue to do the people's bidding and create the optimistic future our citizens so richly deserve. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's a very special evening, beautiful evening. And I just want to say, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
There you have it. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump and the Vice President Mike Pence and his wife Karen Pence as they kick off a tradition on a beautiful summer night in Washington, D.C. as they get ready for the picnic with members of Congress. Obviously, Democrats and Republicans all gathered there on the South Lawn for the evening, and the president expressing his hopes that perhaps they can come together on some legislation in the very near future. And also, he was obviously putting out some good words for Steve Scalise, who is still in the hospital but appears to be doing better. He's got a long recovery road ahead of him, to be sure, but he is someone who is very well liked on Capitol Hill, and his children got the A tour tonight, which I'm sure they're happy about. So we want to keep one eye sort of on this as we move forward, but we also want to bring back our friends Charlie Hurt and Juan Williams, who are here tonight watching this with us. And before we get to our other topic, just a quick thought on what we just saw. Charlie?
The president is not exactly always presidential and doesn't always exactly say everything the way politicians are supposed to say it. But, it's heartfelt. It's funny. I think he genuinely means what he says. And he completely talks over the media and reaches people, in the voters. And that's all that matters. He's very effective at that.
Juan?
Well, I love it when he says, I've made some friends, even politicians. And he's talking to a group of politicians. I mean, who's there? And of course, I was struck by the idea that normally the president comes to the picnic with an open collar. He chose not to. He looked great. He looked like the president, but
he wears two things. He wears the jacket and tie,
right,
or golf clothes.
That's it.
But I haven't seen anything in between of you.
But it's all about marketing. He is a marketer, and he knows that that's his style, that's his thing, and he doesn't deviate from it, and it's effective, I think.
Yeah, and there he is, sort of working the crowd, which he also very much likes to do, as everybody's out there on this very nice evening. We want to go back to something that he said last night that got some attention. He was in Iowa, and he was explaining why he chose people who happen to be very wealthy to have high positions in his cabinet when it comes to the economy. Watch.
So somebody said, why did you appoint a rich person to be in charge of the economy? I said, no, it's true. And Wilbur's a very rich person in charge of commerce. I said, because that's the kind of thinking we want. I mean, really, because they're representing the country. They love all people, rich or poor. But in those particular positions, I just don't want a poor person. Does that make sense?
Charlie, what's wrong with that?
I didn't.
You don't think there's anything wrong with it?
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And when he said it, I turned to the guy that I was watching with, and I said, you know what? That's going to be the only thing anybody talks about tomorrow. Is that the media is not going to get the joke? Obviously, he's not saying that he doesn't like poor people. He's saying that he wants a rich person, somebody who's made a lot of money, to be running the Commerce Department.
Because they're good at handling money.
Because they're good at making money, and it's going to make all of us rich. And I think that most people that heard that they automatically go to that, unless you're in the media and you just you have no sense of humor, and you automatically just have to parse everything and turn it into a scandal.
You just set up this perfectly. Let's take a look.
It was what he said about who he wants to lead his economic team and poor people that's making news this morning. John, this is a president who campaigned on the forgotten man. What was this all about?
I've just never heard a leader say, when you come right down to it, in certain things, I'll qualify it, the rich are just better than the poor at it.
Any other person in politics who would say something like that would have their career crushed, and Donald Trump's just going to skate by it. Are you speechless?
I am.
Okay.
I really am. Such quizzical faces, Juan. Impossible to figure out why you would want someone who is good at handling money to handle the money.
Well, that's not what he said. He didn't say that he wanted people who are expert at handling money. He said he thought rich people. Now, you can inherit money, you can be blessed by God Almighty and come into money, but he didn't say expertise. I think this is Donald Trump like.
I don't think either of the men that he mentioned, Cohn and
Wilbur Ross,
thank you. I don't think either one of them inherited their money.
No, but obviously, when you're talking about things like Goldman Sachs, when you're talking about billionaires, in fact, you're talking about billionaires, Martha, what you're saying is these people somehow in Donald Trump's mind fit with the smart, the beautiful, the successful, okay?
Right.
So going with Charlie's, I'll take that. But the fact is, being rich doesn't mean that you're not corrupt. It doesn't mean that you're not greedy. We've seen a lot of that 2008 recession. Guess what? It was those very beautiful rich people who took the country down.
And you know who was President Obama's economic team? You had Jason Furman, $24.7 million net worth. Penny Pritzker, $2.4 billion net worth. He chose similar people with similar.
I think his cabinet's 5 times wealthier than the Obama cabinet, about 34 times wealthier than the Bush cabinet, by the way.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Good to see you tonight. So also tonight, the left sounding new alarms, fearing that President Trump could reshape the courts across the land. With current judicial vacancies well over 100, the president is in a prime position to do just that, to pack the courts with men and women who align with his way of thinking. President for the Alliance for Justice group warning, quote, they are taking advantage of the moment to realize their dream of putting judges hostile to civil rights and civil liberties on the bench, who will be there long after Donald Trump leaves office. Here now, David Wall and attorney Richard Fowler is a senior fellow at New Leaders Council and a Fox News contributor. Gentlemen, as we watch the picnic tonight, your thoughts on the potential for these judge positions and how they may make America look. David?
Well, since Donald Trump declared his candidacy, he vowed to have a robust conservative judiciary, one that would stick to the black letter of the Constitution. What a concept. Now, there are 100 vacancies right now in the federal judiciary. And what does that mean? He's going to be able to get people in, thanks to Harry Reid deploying the nuclear option 4 years ago, with a simple 51-49 majority, which means he could get all of those judges to be conservative judges, and we need to balance out. We've seen the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, the hyper-liberal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, shoot down everything he's brought in front of them, Martha. So this is critical. This is going to be a big deal for him. Gorsuch made the Supreme Court a conservative majority. Now we're going to go to the federal bench, so he's going to get what he wants done with these judges. Big deal for him.
I mean, remember we showed a picture once of the strategy room at the White House, and Steve Bannon was in there being interviewed, and behind him there was this huge list of things to do. And one of the prominent things on that list was to fill these judicial positions. I mean, it falls under every president's purview, Richard, and it is their right to do so.
It is Donald Trump's right, and I don't know why Democrats are alarmed, because that's what he said he was going to do. So what you can expect for the view at home, the more proliferation of guns, discriminations against the LGBTQ community, the disenfranchisement of voting rights, and the laundry list continues from conservative justices. You will once again see them do the same things that they've been doing.
Are those going to be the priorities, David?
No.
Yeah, of course it is. What else
First
are
of all,
they gonna do?
Mr. Trump has made it very clear that he wants to protect LGBTQ rights. He wants to protect the Second Amendment rights, First Amendment rights. And listen, as far as protecting the homeland, what could be more critical? He knows that he has the executive power by statute to implement a temporary travel ban. Any judge who's non-political knows that. That's what's going to happen next. It'll have to go to the Supreme Court, but it'll go to a Supreme Court that understands the simple letter of the law. He can implement the travel ban.
You're absolutely right. He's going to ban Muslims, and he's going to discriminate against gay people. That's what these type of judges do. They've done it over and over again.
Never going to happen.
Gotta leave it there, guys. I'm sorry. I'm out of time. Sorry to cut you off.
It is.
Richard, David, good to see you both. So tonight, another provocation by North Korea as they take one more step towards fueling a successful rocket that could put U.S. lives in danger. This as friends and family gather today to remember the life of Otto Warmbier, who was killed by the North Koreans. Up next, we'll be joined by a pair of congressmen targeting the Hermit Nation. Also on the story tonight, a heartbreaking final farewell to student Otto Warmbier, who died this week after being released from his captors in North Korea. Thousands of mourners line the streets of his hometown in Ohio today, where he was remembered as being the nicest kid who had a bright future ahead of him. That's his family on the right in that picture. We know that he suffered severe brain injuries while he was in custody, and it has outraged many, including our nation's leaders. A bipartisan pair of lawmakers are trying to prevent other Americans from facing a similar fate. They join me now, California Democrat Adam Schiff and South Carolina Republican Joe Wilson. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Obviously a very difficult day in Wyoming, Ohio today, but you are trying to have something good come out of this. Congressman Schiff, tell us about this legislation.
Well, the legislation would require a license to visit North Korea, and it would essentially ban one category, that is tourist travel. Tourist travel exposes American citizens to great risk and harm. We saw, obviously, just how tragic that can be with the death of Otto Warmbier. But it also provides a source of hard currency for North Korea. It allows the North to take Americans hostage and use them as bargaining chips to compel high-level delegation visits to try to retrieve American citizens. So this is something that we want to do more to discourage. I want to thank my colleague Joe Wilson for all of his leadership on this issue, and our Foreign Affairs Chairman Ed Royce for agreeing to take up the bill. It is a very bipartisan work product, and I think its time has certainly tragically come.
Yeah. Let's listen to this from the president last night in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
But you look at North Korea, what's going. Look at Otto, beautiful Otto. Went over there a healthy, wonderful boy. And you see how he came back. You see how he came back. So we've been given a bad hand, but we're going to take that bad hand, and it'll all be good.
Congressman Wilson, how would this bill that you're proposing hurt North Korea?
Well, I'm really grateful it would require a license before tourists could visit North Korea. Currently, people can visit at any time, but this would limit the persons. They would have to have a license from the U.S. Department of Treasury, and it would provide for humanitarian efforts, but not for tourism. Tourism only benefits the communist totalitarian dictatorship, and I'm just so proud of President Donald Trump pointing out his deep affection for Otto Warmbier and his family. The American people have been so tragically affected by this murder of just a wonderful UVA student.
You know, obviously, we've seen a lot of escalation, a lot of missile tests coming from North Korea. Today, we had a failed missile interceptor test off of Hawaii. You know, Congressman Schiff, in terms of how that part of this tension is going, you know, this bill have any impact on that? Or what do you expect from the president when it comes to that in the face of the death of Otto Warmbier and the new resolve to be stronger against this regime?
Well, I think this bill certainly signals a willingness in the United States to do whatever we need to do to crack down on North Korea, to, in this case, deprive North Korea of this hard currency as well as the opportunity to exploit the presence of American citizens. But there's a lot more that we need to do, as the president has alluded, and as our Secretary of State underscored recently. There's a lot more that China can do, really needs to do. China has the primary economic leverage on North Korea. I think we're going to have to make it clear to China that unless they do more, we're going to have to impose secondary sanctions on Chinese financial institutions, expand theater missile defense, expand our naval presence. Those are steps we don't necessarily want to take, but we'll have to.
I mean, there's not a ton of tourism in North Korea, but I understand, you know, the meaning behind what you're trying to do and to prevent anyone from seeing the same fate that Otto Warmbier saw when he visited that country. There are still other individuals that are there. There are 3 other Americans. What can be done in Congress? Are you putting pressure on this situation, Representative Wilson, to try to bring them home and use this as some sort of leverage?
And sadly, we've had 17 Americans that have been held by the North Koreans over the last 10 years, and 3 still are in custody. And we will be making every effort, and I appreciate the extraordinary efforts of President Trump working with President Xi of China, that every effort will be made to bring these persons home, to protect American citizens, and any way that, and hey, this is a classic example of bipartisanship that the American people need to see. A Republican from South Carolina, a Democrat from California. The American people are united against a dictatorship in Pyongyang.
It's good to see both of you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Coming up next, a story from Wyoming, Ohio, is our quote of the night. Today, thousands gathered at Otto Warmbier's high school for his funeral in the tightly knit community of Wyoming, Ohio. Tonight, we remember a young man whose life was taken violently and senselessly. Our quote of the night is from him at his graduation at high school back in 2013.
As we prepare to leave Wyoming High School, it feels like saying goodbye to a close friend. In a literal sense, it is. Many of us will move far away and not come back for a long time. But there's also a different kind of goodbye, a farewell to something larger than just a friend. This is our last day together as Wyoming High School's class of 2013. Tomorrow morning, we will all belong to another class, another job, or another city. No matter where we go or what we do, though, we will always have this group here. Even when Wyoming's class of 2013 is a thing of the past, we'll have the support of all of these people around us. We'll have the knowledge we gained as a group, and we'll have the reruns, the memories we've created to be played over and over again. Thank you.
Very well spoken. He went on to UVA. That's Otto Warmbier's story. Like 9/11 and other attacks on our nation, it is a story we must never forget. Good night, everybody.